Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to 5 Minutes of Torah with the Rabbi. A few weeks before I left Vancouver for my sabbatical here in Australia, I shared an opinion in a Shabbat morning Devar Torah about one particular blessing that is found in our Siddur. I shared my opinion about a change to that blessing that's not only in our new Siddur, but in our old Siddur, the Sim Shalom, as well as virtually every non-Orthodox Siddur in the world. In the morning, we say what is known as the Birkot HaShachar, or the morning blessings. And the first three of these brachot are blessings that have been changed by non-Orthodox Siddurim to reflect something that is closer to our ideology, and also from the negative to the positive. So, for example, we have changed the blessing that says, "Thank you, God, for Shelo Asani Isha," for not making me a woman. This is, of course, a change that I'm completely comfortable with. We've also changed the blessing that says, Shelo Asani Goy. Thank you, God, for not making me a non-Jew. Again, this is a blessing change that I'm completely comfortable with. But there's one change that our Siddur has made that I'm not so comfortable with. And in that blessing, we say, thank God for making me Ben Chorin, for making me a free person, as opposed to for Shelo Asani Avid, for not making me a slave. Now, I understand why the Siddur would want to continue in the positive vein after saying, turning the brachot for not making me a non-Jew and for not making me a woman into positive blessings, and for saying, thank you, God, for making me Ben Chorin. Thank you, God, for making me a free person. But I have a bit of an issue with this in the fact that I believe that it's not good to be a slave. And so I'm grateful to God for not making me a slave. I'm thankful to God for my freedom. I'm thankful for God for not being in the horrible situation of slavery that has been a part of humanity for thousands of years. Personally, my own father was a slave. He was a slave to the Nazis. He was a slave working in concentration camps with absolutely no pay. And from what my late father told me about his time in the camps, the worst thing about being a slave is that sometimes the slavery was not even for the purpose of the Nazis themselves, but was simply for the purpose of breaking the will of the Jews. My father was tasked sometimes simply with moving a pile of very heavy rocks from one place to another and then back. And the only purpose of this was to break his will. And yet, he still continued to go on, still continued to survive, despite the slavery, despite what the Nazis tried to do to him. And because of that, I say, Shelo Asani Avid, thank you, God, for not making me a slave, for not putting me in the same situation that my father was in. Unfortunately, we know, though, that there are people who still have to exist in this horrible situation today. There are still people who live their lives as slaves. Connected to this idea, this week we read Parashat Yitro. The Jews, the Israelites, have just been freed from their slavery in Egypt, and now they are free people. And as they are wandering in the desert, we are reminded in this week's Parsha, though, what the purpose of that freedom was. It wasn't exactly freedom, but rather it was redemption. That is, that in place of having a master of Pharaoh, now they have a master of God. And instead of serving someone who cared only about himself, now the Israelites serve a master who cares about them. And how do we fulfill our service to God? Through the fulfillment of mitzvot, through the fulfillment of commandments. And by doing that, we make a connection to God, and we make a connection to our fellow Jews. We actually have purpose in life because we have become avadim, because we have become the servants of God. In this week's Parshat Yitro, Moshe and the entire Israelite nation receive the Aseret HaDibrot, the 10 Commandments, and they receive Torah. And because of this, they have a blueprint for a spiritual and a moral life. And now, our servitude is for a purpose of existence, true freedom, doesn't mean that we are free to do whatever we want. True freedom means that we have an opportunity to serve God, to serve the world, and to make this world a better place. Shabbat Shalom.